So most of you know I grew up in New Jersey, and I grew, well, really, the first 40 years of my life were around cities. So New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and some of you may not know this too. Martha and I met when we were freshmen in high school and started dating. She lived in Northern Virginia. I lived in New Jersey, so it was a long-distance relationship. And so I drove the corridor from Philadelphia to D.C. And so all of that is part of the formation of how I drive. And so you have to know that I tend to drive a little bit more aggressively. I like the gas pedal more than I like the brake pedal. And if you're gonna go somewhere, like, faster is better for me. Even this morning when I came out of, I come from Burlington Mill down Capitol, and this guy, I had followed him for 2 miles, and I'm like, please, just please do the speed limit. And it's 7 in the morning. There's nobody out there. I shouldn't be hurrying, but I just want you to do the speed limit. And as soon as I got on Capitol, bam, hit it, gone, see ya. So I've gotten, no, that's a lie. I was gonna say I've gotten better, but I haven't. I'm impatient in traffic, stop and go. I'm looking for the lane that's moving. And so I'm getting out of that lane, and I push people, like they're going somewhere. But I feel like I can push people with my car. And so I push them down the road so I can get somewhere faster. And I'm also not a huge fan of stop signs. Right now, some of y'all are like, we need to revoke your license. But no, not stop signs in general, but stop signs that I deem are in really stupid places. Like parking lots or three-way stops. Three-way stops, I don't get it. It's like one road goes, you stop, and we go. Or long straightaways. I know they're trying to control speed, but let's just put a stop sign up here. It's irritating to me. And I know there's probably been traffic studies done, maybe accidents at intersections, people complaining, I get it. But to me, they're just irritating. They stop progress for me. And as kind of silly maybe, or maybe dangerous from you, that scares me, Paul, that you drive that way. But as silly as that might be, how I view the brake pedal, how I view stop signs, is the same way that many of us view our lives, to where we don't want somebody setting the pace of our life. After all, I know me better than anybody else. And so I know when to stop and I know when to go. And in fact, I don't want somebody to tell me when to stop, and I don't want somebody to tell me when to go. I want the controls of the pace of my life. But there's a couple problems with that. On the going side and on the stopping side. Because on the going side, if we get up into that hurried pace of our world, the chaotic pace of our world, and we start feeling all of this man, we gotta get it done, let's go. We're losing daylight, let's load the wagon, come on, time is money, we're wasting time right here. Come on, let's go. We gotta hurry faster, more, better. What are you doing standing around? Let's go. And we get on that pace. And what happens in that hurried, frantic, stressful pace is we become people that aren't very nice. We're for sure not loving, because we got to get it done. And we're just getting stuff done. And the people that are trying to love us, they're just irritating us, because we're trying to get stuff done. And in fact, the people around us, it could be family, could be friends, could be whatever, we don't notice what they need because we are so self-absorbed in trying to get it done. We got the pedal down. So that's on the going side. But then when we finally get to a spot where we're exhausted or we're tired or we're spent and we stop. When we finally stop, exhausted, we don't always make the right choices on how we spend our time, what we do, what we eat, come on, what we watch. We are prone, when we are tired, when we're exhausted, we're more prone to sin, to make really bad choices when we are exhausted. And the things that we start to do end up like we think that they're gonna help us, replenish us, but it does the opposite. It actually makes us more tired, exhausted, maybe even empty. For example, how many of you feel like you just want to go out and tackle the world after you binge watch a series on Netflix or who? Don't you just feel so productive? Like, I'm gonna go kill something right now. I'm gonna go tackle the world. Or when, like, you get this pain in the back of your neck because for the last couple hours you've been scrolling TikTok, Reels, whatever, and so you're like, oh, why do I feel so awful right now? Or you just watched back-to-back football games. Like, you're ready to tackle the world. No, we don't feel like that. We actually feel exhausted. I actually feel bad. Like, did I just waste 6 hours? So when we control the throttle of our life as finite people that can't see everything, when we control the throttle of our life, we determine our own rhythm. After all, I know me better than anybody else. So I'm going to determine the own rhythm, and I decide when and how I'm going to replenish. We often miss out on what God has for us. That's why we jumped in last week to this series on the Sabbath. It's a gift that God has given us. So last week we opened up our Bible, beginning of the Bible, Genesis chapter 2. We saw God created everything in 6 days and he rested on the seventh. So we opened to this ancient practice. It's like a treasure in your attic that you're like, man, I didn't know I had that. Or you forgot that you had it. And the fact is that a very small percentage of followers of Jesus actually practice the Sabbath. And last week we defined the Sabbath as a 24-hour period of time that happens weekly where we do 4 rhythms: stop, rest, delight, and worship. And while the traditional Sabbath, Jewish Sabbath, is from sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday, and most Christians, if they even talk about the Sabbath or entertain it, it's usually the Lord's Day Sunday. But we're not going to get hung up on the day of week that you pick. If you're going to enter into this practice for you as a follower of Jesus, which I would highly recommend and encourage, then we're not going to make a big deal of the day that you choose. That's up to you. But we do, however, encourage you to follow the rhythm of God, where you're on for 6 and you're stopping for 1, resting for 1, you're delighting for 1, you're worshiping. We'll get into all of that. And so the Sabbath, it's designed to be the culmination of your week. It's designed to be the best day of your entire week. And maybe that blows your mind. You're like, I don't know how, I can't even think. Number one, I can't even think how I can do a Sabbath, but then I don't see how that can be the best day of my whole week. So we're going to practice it together over the next 4 weeks. And so it has 4 rhythms: stop, rest, delight, worship. So we're gonna do each week. This week is stop, next week rest, delight, worship. Okay? And some of you think, well, that sounds like we could do all of that in 1 week. Can we do all that in 1 week? Can we just tackle that today? Probably we could. But it would be like a talk where we just have it and then it goes and we don't practice, we don't sit with it. So intentionally as a team, we said we are gonna slow down and we're gonna go through this and we are gonna work on this practice together. And I am not unrealistic in my expectations. Okay, just so you know. I don't feel like we're gonna go from 0 to 100 with this practice in a week or a month. This is so countercultural to the world that we live in and even in Christian circles. So it's gonna take time. It's gonna take trial and error. It's gonna be you trying to figure out, okay, what day, all of that. It's gonna take, and then there are seasons of life, and so it's gonna change over time. So this is a practice that and again, I encourage you to jump into this, to try this. If you're gonna do it, it's gonna take some time. And it's not necessarily a day off, and we're gonna talk about that in a couple weeks. Like the difference is between the 2 words relax and replenish. There's a difference between those 2. So it's not necessarily a day off, but it's a day that you and I need for our soul and for our body. So today we're gonna begin with the rhythm of stop. Now, you want me to keep talking. And if I would be quiet any longer, like I'm uncomfortable already. Like you stop for 4 seconds and I'm uncomfortable. But if I stopped and I walked off the platform, right there, message is over. And I walked out that back door and the team didn't come out and finish. They didn't come. Somebody'd be like, yes, service is over. Sure, I'm out. Seriously, if that happened, y'all be like, what just happened? And then you'd be like, well, what are we supposed to do now? So you would be whispering to one another, talking to one another, looking across the room. Eventually you would leave. I hope. I don't know what would happen. But eventually you would just leave the room. And then you would be talking about it. And then it would blow up social media. Stop. Stopping should be easy, shouldn't it? But it's not. It's for whatever, it's hard for us to just shut it down. Stop working. Just stop working. Shut off your devices. Just shut them off. Turn off the TV. And just be. Just be. Enjoy big meals. Rest, sleep, read. Like play with your kids. Be fully present with your kids. Play with them. Enjoy that. Don't try and do something or accomplish something. Just be. Enjoy intimacy with your spouse. Wait, what? What did he? Some of you guys, now you're waking up to Sabbath. Yes, I'm Sabbath. I'm on that page. Intimacy with my wife. Yes, I'm starting my Sabbath this afternoon. Yes. We have a hard time setting our device down. And if we do set it down, it's within at least arm's length. I don't turn it off. It's just, and the thought of being without a TV for 24, that's like death. What am I gonna, seriously, Paul, what am I going to do? For all of us, when we start to press in, when anybody in our life starts to press in a little bit against the norm of how I do things in my life, or they press in against the status quo, or even like push or nudge towards this idea of denying myself anything, there is some resistance. But as we saw last week, on the seventh day, God rested. God rested. So I sent you away last week with that thought, just to let that sit in a little bit. No fine-tuning on what God had created. Like he created, he finished, he stopped, he ceased. He didn't think about, you know what? Second guessing this a little bit. I wonder if the people that are gonna enjoy my creation are gonna approve of what I just did. Maybe I should add something here. Maybe I should do something. No, he ceased. And he set it apart to be different from any other day. You know, our lives have gotten more accelerated and more hurried, more full, and yet not necessarily fulfilling. But before everything that we experience in this world, like, I mean, we could get some, Amazon will get something to our door within 2 hours. We have travel teams and instant everything, communication, and we could work 24 hours a day. And we could get just about anything we want, whenever we want it. But before all of that, God created a day and he set it aside. And he put within all of us, within our DNA, we are image bearers. He put within all of us this rhythm of stop. But we deny it. We resist it. Why? Why do we resist it? Because stopping messes with us. Stopping messes with us. Last week, I concluded the gathering, and I said this, I know what y'all are thinking. I'm not a mind reader, but I know what y'all are thinking. You are thinking about every reason why Sabbath cannot be part of your life. All the demands of your life, your work schedules, your kids' schedules, again, which are crazy, the demands of your clients, the demands of your boss, where you are financially. You just go down through the list of all the reasons why Sabbath can. And then there's the other group that you're like, Sabbath. Sounds like a cool practice, but I'm not doing it. Like, I don't want to do it. But let me, again, just reiterate what I said last week. I'm not asking you to do something else in your life. I'm not asking you to do that, like check. I can check off, I did Sabbath. That's not the goal here. I'm encouraging you to consider a practice that would help you follow Jesus better. That's what it's an unwrapped gift. Like it's out there. Here it is for you to pursue him and fall deeper in love with the God of the universe through his son Jesus, empowered by his Holy Spirit, so that we can do what we were created to do, which is bring God glory with everything in us. To use this day to set us up for the other 6 days. And so as we jump in it, look, I just need to stop here. I am not that far ahead of you at all in this area, just so you know. I don't like to stop. I remember a couple of years ago, I was talking to my friend and I said, man, I just can't rest unless I get out of town. Like I can't shut down, I can't rest, I can't relax until I leave Raleigh. I have to get out of Raleigh. And in true fashion, he said, well, that's a problem. He said, that's not sustainable. You need to figure out how else you can replenish. And so I thought about that conversation this past week as I was walking through these notes. And I was asking myself questions. Why are we so quick to dismiss this practice of Sabbath? What is it, like about stopping, about carving out 24 hours of my week? What is it about that threatens me so much? So I came up with this thought. Maybe it's because stopping long enough brings us face to face with two areas of our lives that can quickly make us feel uncomfortable: our identity and our idolatry. And so let's just talk about identity. So it's something we care deeply about here at 7 Marks. It's one of our marks, the disciples, one who finds their identity in Jesus. And so now I want to set up this parallel for you just to tie Old Testament and New Testament. So when we jumped into this series last week, we talked about in the beginning, God created everything. On the 7th day, he rested, he set it aside. So it was a gift in the very beginning of all of creation. It's God-centered, it's not law-centered. And then God chooses this people for himself. He rescues them from slavery, from Egypt. And after that, he gives them a command to keep this day. And the intent was for them to remember who they were, who they are in him. They are his chosen people. And this was a way for him to show them deliverance and grace. So God rescues them, gives them this command, this Sabbath day to set aside, to remember all of that. Now, fast forward to Jesus. Jesus comes to the planet, God in the flesh, to rescue us, to save us from our bondage in sin. And in that, right, he gives us life. John 10:10. I have come to give them life and give it to them abundantly. That's what Jesus says. So you see this picture of how in the Old Testament, God saves, he chooses a people, he saves them, he gives them this Sabbath rest, and then fast forward, God comes in the person of Jesus, he saves us from our sin, and he gives us this life. And so when we bring our allegiance to Jesus, when we become his followers, the scriptures say that we put him on. We now are identified in Jesus. He has rescued us. But in that same text, John 10:10, it says the thief comes to what? To steal, to kill, destroy. The thief has no interest in you having the kind of life that Jesus wants for you, that died and rose again to give you. The thief wants nothing to do with that. And so you say, well, Paul, what does that have to do with the Sabbath? So one of the chief ways that the enemy comes to destroy and to kill your life is to mess with you and confuse you about your identity, about who you are in Jesus. Over 130 times in the New Testament, it talks about positionally where we are in him. So if you have your Bibles, go to Colossians chapter 3. I want to I could go anywhere in the scriptures, in the New Testament, and talk to you about this position that we have in Jesus and what that affords us. But I want to just go to one. We only have time for one. I want to go to Colossians chapter 3. I'm going to start reading at verse 12. And it says this: put on then, okay, Paul, the author of this, is saying, okay, since you're a follower of Jesus, then this is what I'm encouraging you to do. Put on then, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, patience, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other. As the Lord has forgiven you, so also you must forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. And whatever you do in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. And you could go to Ephesians, where it says, hey, be careful how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of your days. Notice what's not in this passage I just read. There's nothing in the passage that speaks to your production as a human being, about how much you're accomplishing, all of the things that you were able to do in the past year. Says nothing about that. Doesn't say anything about how much money you were able to stack away and continue to stack away. It doesn't say anything about all the stuff you have been able to acquire on your time on the earth. Doesn't say anything about your status, how high you were able to get or are getting in your company. Doesn't say anything about your neighborhood, what neighborhood you're able to now live in because of the money that you have. Doesn't say anything about what car you are able to drive. That's not in the passage. It's nowhere in the passage. There's nothing in this passage that the world elevates to tell us who we are. That's how the enemy wants you to believe that you are what you earn, what your status is, what neighborhood you live in. That's what the enemy wants you to believe, who you are. What we do see in the passage, though, is the character of the person that we are called to become. That's what you see in the passage: compassionate, kind, humble, patient, forgiving, loving. Let me ask you a question. Where does that formation happen? Where does it happen? If we are busy filling our schedules and chasing the dollar and chasing a name, where is the space for us to be transformed into the kinds of people that this passage is talking about? Where does that happen? People that demonstrate these characteristics. Let me ask you another question. Who is the one who forms all of that in your life? I'll give you the answer. Galatians 5:22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. See, the transformation of our lives to look like Jesus is the result of the Spirit of God living inside of us. And the work that he is doing, and that doesn't happen if we are never giving any attention to it in the course of our week. Much of that formation happens when we stop. The Sabbath, while it is a gift that's been given to us to replenish us, it also gives God the open space to do the formation that needs to happen in us. There is a reason we are called human beings and not human doings. We're not machines. We are image bearers of our Father, created to live in relationship with him, and then live that out in whatever we do with other people. The Sabbath was designed to be this magnifying glass that exposes the things in us that need to be changed. Areas where we don't quite look like Jesus, but he's doing a work on us to make us look more like him. And so, in thinking that through, like that makes us uncomfortable. It's almost like it scares us a little bit to stop. Like what's going to happen? What's he going to do in me? I'll tell you what he's going to do. He's going to love you. That's what he's going to do. He's going to love you. And he's going to show you his goodness. And he's going to show you his grace. Somebody needs to hear this today. God accepts you for who you are in Jesus, not for what you do, not for what you bring to the table. God wants to be with you. He wants you to enjoy being with him in his presence. He wants to teach you not to put your self-worth in what you accomplish or how many items that you're able to check off of your to-do list, but simply who you are in him and who you're becoming, the person that you are becoming. As one author writes it, I love this, speaking on the subject of Sabbath. The world says, make yourself more. Give us more. God says, you're enough. Stop. I just want to be with you. The Sabbath forces us to do business with our identity. But then the other reason the reason why we're quick to dismiss Sabbath and not stop is it unmasks the idols in our lives. The idolatry in our life. Idolatry is anything that we put before God or above God. And that includes us and what we want. Let's face it. Nobody in the room, including me, nobody in the room watching online wants to be told what to do. And a lot of the time, not even from God. We resist it. From the time we're kids, we fight for independence, like to make our way, push away from our parents and be the person, be independent. But what happens, we end up building our own little empire. We become our own kings, our queens, our own little gods, and we build this empire We start creating this empire, and we ask God, will you bless this empire that I'm creating? And what happens is Sabbath comes and opposes that. Sabbath opposes anything and everything that has risen above God. And by the way, God gave you all of that stuff anyway. He's given you absolutely everything in your life. And we idolize it. And the Sabbath just comes and opposes that. So no, that needs to take a back seat. That needs to go back into its rightful place. And here's what stopping does. Stopping reveals to us that those idols are way bigger than we thought. And they are way stronger than we thought. And they don't go away easy. They don't go away easy. We don't want them to. That's why they were idols, or are idols. But Sabbath, when you begin to practice it, it has the power to reduce the strength, to lighten up the grip that idols have in our lives. There's a lady that wrote Sabbath Keeping. Her name's Lynn Bob. And after just writing this book, and she came back to some thoughts, some things that she learned since she wrote the book. And I love what she says. Most importantly, keeping a Sabbath week after week and year after year inscribes on our hearts that we are finite creatures of an infinite God, and that the universe, our work, our families, everything we feel responsible for belong to God. God is God, and we are not. We desperately need to know this truth deep inside our hearts, and the Sabbath helps us put it there. So, this rhythm of stop, where do we start? Like, how do we jump in? It's a question some of you left with last week. Okay, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, how do we start? So a mantra that we often use in our world is, hey, go big or go home. Actually, that can be pretty dangerous here and harmful. So I would tell you the opposite. Go small or go home. Like, start small, start simple. Maybe it's 12 hours, maybe it's 8 hours, maybe whatever. Like move into that, okay? And I have been really transparent with you, and I will continue to be. Like, I told you last week, I'm not a half step. I don't even know if I'm a quarter step in front of you. Some of you are well in front of me. You've been doing Sabbath. This is new for me. Okay, and I told you that last week, Martha and I, we have slowed our pace over the last month. But even her and I, just talking through Sabbath at home. And so I'm going to give you 3 things to start to work on this week. And I'm working on this with you, okay? Just so you know. So this week, pick a day. Pick your day. Pick your Sabbath. So for me, mine's going to start when I leave this building. So mine goes from Sunday afternoon, and then it'll go till Monday when I walk in here to staff meeting tomorrow at lunch. That's my Sabbath. Martha, she has a little earlier start. She has a sweet schedule on Sunday morning. She has coffee and time in the Word, and she's done on Monday morning. So our Sabbath overlaps in the middle. She has personal time at the front. I have personal time at the end, and then together. And we're going to work on that for the next couple months. That's what we're doing. So, and then number 2, bookend your Sabbath. Figure out how you're going to start it, how you're going to end it. And for me, when I go and I sit in my car in a few minutes, I'm just going to go. Then I'm just going to pray. Say, this is your next 24 hours, Father. This is our Sabbath together. I pray over this, that word of God would not fall empty. It doesn't. He promises it's not going to fall empty in here, but he would seal it, and you would allow him to do the work in your life. And so tomorrow when I come, I'll park in the same parking space that I always do out front. I'll back in, and I'll just sit there before I walk in this building, and I'll just thank him. So that's the bookends of my Sabbath. And then lastly, what are you going to stop? What are you going to stop? Now, some of you are like type A, like, I'm going to stop this, I'm going to stop this, I'm going to stop this, I'm going to stop. No. Start slow. Start small. Like, are you going to, your device, what are you going to do with that? You shut that down? How about TV? Yeah, I don't know if I can shut the TV off. Figure out what you're going to do. For sure, stop working. Okay, that's a given. Stop working. But then what else are you going to stop? Stop buying and selling? Like, what? Figure out for you. Again, we're going to work through this over the next month. Okay? Look, this isn't a law of 7 marks. Okay? Just so you know. This isn't a law. This isn't legalism. This isn't burdensome. This is designed to be life-giving to you.